Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're looking at something that is so incredibly familiar to you, but honestly, so profoundly misunderstood: your very own body. I mean, we usually think of ourselves as these fixed, solid biological machines, right? But as you'll see, the actual reality is so much more dynamic and literally mind-blowing than that. So let me ask you this. Are you a thing or are you a process? Now, I know it kind of sounds like a philosophical riddle, but it's actually a deeply profound biological question. We look in the mirror, we see a solid object. But what if our basic, everyday intuition about our own physical existence is just wrong? Okay, let's dive into this. To completely deconstruct this whole body as a machine myth, we're going to hit four main areas. First, the physical illusion. Then, the mental construct. After that, the evolutionary engine. And finally, we'll wrap it up with the final perspective. Let's go. Starting right off with part one, the physical illusion. You are an ecosystem, not an object. Most of us treat our bodies like a statue, right? Like a solid, fixed object that just kind of suffers wear and tear as we get older. But you know what? You're actually much closer to a flame. Your body is this continuous, raging flow of matter and energy. I mean, the lining of your gut completely renews in just a matter of days. Your skin, weeks. Even your solid, hard bones are entirely rebuilt over a few years. So you're stable in shape, sure, but you are constantly changing in substance. The you is the actual pattern, the organization, not the atoms. And honestly, the sheer scale of that organization is absolutely staggering. You're made of roughly 30 trillion human cells. But get this, that number is matched equally by another 30 trillion microbial cells. So biologically speaking, you are just as much microbe as you are human. No joke. You're basically this walking, breathing microbial rideshare. And these bacteria aren't just along for the ride. They play a massive role in your digestion, your immunity, and yep, even your mood. And speaking of that wild internal ecosystem, 500 million. That is how many neurons are living inside your gut right now. It's a completely separate neural network known as the enteric nervous system. Think of it as your body's independent, fully functioning second brain. And this second brain is incredibly powerful. It actually functions completely independently of the brain up in your skull. It constantly communicates back and forth through this massive information highway called the vagus nerve. And because of this direct hotline, your gut heavily influences your daily cravings, your mood swings, and even your baseline anxiety. So the entity you call you, it's really this active, ongoing collaboration between your human cells and literally trillions of microbes. All right, moving on to part two, the mental construct. Reality is built from the inside out. This brings us to a truly fascinating concept called predictive processing. Basically, this is the theory that your brain actually guesses what's out there first, and then your sensory input just kind of updates the mistakes. Think about that. You don't just open your eyes and passively see reality. Your brain actively predicts it. You are essentially living inside a controlled hallucination that just usually happens to match the outside world. We really like to think our brains are like a camera. A passive recording device just taking in the sights and sounds exactly as they are. But reality is so much closer to an active prediction machine. And honestly, this perfectly explains why two different people can experience the exact same event in completely different ways. They aren't just misremembering, they are literally constructing different realities based on their own internal predictions. Which brings us to a really counterintuitive question. Is pain just physical damage? I mean, we all kind of assume that if something hurts, it's just a simple, direct signal from a damaged body part straight up to a passive brain, right? But wait, if our perception is constructed, then pain must be constructed too, right? Exactly. Pain is actually a calculated decision by your brain. Before you ever feel even a tiny twinge of pain, your brain evaluates the threat level, the context of the situation, and your past memories. It takes all of this data and literally decides, whether to generate pain as a protective alarm. And because of neuroplasticity, which is just your brain's ability to constantly rewire itself, this is exactly why chronic pain can persist way after an injury has physically healed. It's also why placebos can legitimately reduce real pain. So, if your perception of reality and even your physical pain are actively constructed, what about you? Well, it turns out the I that you feel is a really useful narrative, but it's not a permanent entity. There is no single center of self hiding in your brain. Instead, you've got multiple interconnected systems constantly interacting to create this incredibly seamless, constructed story of self. Okay, let's look at part 3, the evolutionary engine, built for survival, not happiness. So, the real driving force behind our bodies is natural selection. It's an evolutionary process prioritizing reproduction and survival over long-term peace or happiness. Listen, your body was optimized to keep you alive in a really harsh, ancient world. It wasn't built to keep you perfectly content in the modern one. This is exactly why we desperately crave calorie-dense things, like donuts over broccoli. It's why we feel this baseline level of anxiety, just to say hyper-alert. And it's why we naturally procrastinate. We're just trying to conserve energy. And speaking of conserving energy, your body treats energy as a super strict currency. There are major biological trade-offs happening all the time. Thinking deeply, healing from an illness, building muscle, all of these things cost massive amounts of energy. Through this balancing act called homeostasis, your body is constantly making really strict decisions about where to spend those limited funds. So, the next time you feel fatigue, remember, it's not just you being tired. It is your body actively negotiating its metabolic priorities to keep you safe. To manage all this crazy survival programming, your body doesn't just rely on chemistry. It runs on highly precise timing systems. The most important one? Your circadian rhythm. It controls your sleep, your hormones, digestion, mood, focus, and immunity. This basically means that when you do something is often just as critical as what you do. If you disrupt this rhythm with late nights or glowing screens, every single system in your body takes a hit. Now, what's truly incredible is how your body actually learns over time to ensure that survival. Let's talk about adaptive immunity. This is your immune system's ability to learn, remember, and evolve responses to past infections over time. It is not a passive shield at all. It's an active learning intelligence. You literally carry a biological cellular history of absolutely everything you have ever survived right inside of you right now. How cool is that? All right, let's bring all these fascinating threads together for part 4, the final perspective, a self-organizing universe. When you look at all the evidence, it completely dismantles the idea of the body as a static machine. The myth tells us we're solid. The reality is we are a constant flow of matter. The myth says we're singular. Reality says we are a vast biological collective. The myth implies we're passively conscious. Reality proves we are predictive engines. And the myth suggests we are fixed objects, when the biological truth is we are infinitely, beautifully adaptive. And it all points back to this one really profound realization. The human body is less like a machine and more like a self-organizing universe in miniature. You are not a static object. You are a constant, awe-inspiring negotiation between your past evolution, your present environment, and your future survival. So, how does this change the way you live? If you aren't just some physical machine taking wear and tear, but this dynamic, ever-changing ecosystem and prediction engine, how does that change the way you treat yourself today? Take that incredible new perspective with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.